Hi everybody, David Grant, Horwich and Blackwood First Independence. Last night you will have seen, and I'll add it to the end of this, the motion at full council, which was just about approved, which was my motion to reject the write-off of the £1.5 million to NCP, 1.2 million plus ongoing revenue. This has been a long fight. I first brought it up at the cabinet. I then escalated that to scrutiny, and when it was defeated at scrutiny, I then used a veto to bring it to full council. The Labour group and officers want to write off this money as a bad debt. As far as I'm concerned, the NCP is owned by the Bank of Japan, which is ultimately owned by the Japanese government. It isn't a bad debt. This money is recoverable. Their argument is that they've got reserves. Well, yeah, everybody has reserves, including NCP. But we should be spending those reserves, or the COVID grant, which is going into the bad debt reserves, should be spent helping local businesses, not a national company. There were lots of good arguments as well on our side, which was principally to do with the fact that they entered into a 50-year contract. In those 50 years, you will have ups and downs. So in good years, are they just going to profit all the cash and walk away just paying us what we are owed? And then in bad years, coming back, cap in hand, saying, sorry, we've had a few bad years, can you write it off? My biggest issue, more than anything else, is that they allowed themselves to get into £3.5 million worth of debt before coming to the table. I'm all for renegotiating the contract, but only from a neutral standpoint, as in, you pay what you owe, then we'll talk. That's how business should be done. You should not be held by the barrel of a gun saying, we will drag this out and make sure you don't get the other 2 million until you agree to write off 1.5. And that's what I point out. If you watch the second part of the video, is the threats. And I've had this with the town centre regeneration, where they took money out to build the car park for the health hub. It's, if you don't do this, the business will do something bad. And that's always the threat to all councillors that is held, that officers hold over us. If you don't do what we tell you, something bad may or could happen. And the argument that we would lose in court when we have unless there's something the officers aren't telling us, if we have a perfectly valid, legal, signed contract, no court is going to throw that out. And any judge would give us the default in our favour, the judgment in our favour. So watch the video. HBFI and your independent councillors are trying to protect the public purse. We're trying to do the responsible thing. And as you've seen, the main groups simply do what they're told, all whipped to vote a certain way. That's why we need you. That's why we need your support. We're just normal people. Your HBFI councillors are just normal people. We're not career politicians. We're normal people. We live in the community, and we're doing what we think is right, which ultimately is exactly what you think is right. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the video, and I'll speak to you soon.
Contract.
Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Depending on which explanation you take from the conversations we've had on this issue, this write-off is either coming from bad debt provision or a non-specific ring-fence COVID recovery grant. Either way, both options are public money. If it's a bad debt provision, it's coming directly from the Bolton taxpayer, and a COVID recovery grant indirectly through general taxation. However, I do not believe the government intended the funds to be used to pay a negotiated settlement to a perfectly solvent company. I believe its intent was to assist unavoidable debts to this council and to assist in local community and businesses. At a time when we're contemplating raising taxes to the maximum allowable, the ethics of allocating funds to a perfectly solvent company, pushing up their profits for millionaire shareholders, is abhorrent and detrimental to the public's perception. The public is rightly going to question why essential public services are being jeopardised while a prosperous international company is receiving financial leniency. This dissonance between proposed tax increases and seemingly unmerited corporate benefits will erode public trust in our decision-making process. So the motion that I put forward now is quite simple, that this Council demands the Cabinet rejects the request to write off £1.2 million and ongoing revenue reduction to NCP. It is not financially prudent and not what the public expects of the Council at a time of serious financial hardship for residents and local businesses. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Mayor. When everyone's finished with the National attacking one another, let's finish this off. Thank you, Councillor Karam. You have it. I knew it was going to come, and I knew it happened. If you don't do what we say, something bad may happen. That's your attempt. I've seen it from officers, I've seen it from councillors and executive members. If you don't do what we say, something bad will happen. This will go back to the government, so we won't have any money. Oh no. How about you actually make them honour the contract and get them to pay the debt? Councillor Peel, you mentioned this COVID recovery fund, if that's what it is, and I'm not doubting you. It's for car parks, which wasn't mentioned in the report, and other things. Well, let's use it for other things. You mentioned there's lots of write-offs from businesses who've been struggling. Let's use it for that. What are the other things? Let's use it for our local businesses and our local residents, not international businesses who have their own bad debt provision, and that can be written off into that. Our primary responsibility as stewards of public funds is to ensure their prudent and responsible use. Writing off a substantial amount to a solvent entity, especially when we're considering increasing tax burden on our citizens, raises serious questions about the fiscal accountability. It is our duty to safeguard the financial interests of our community and use public resources judiciously. In conclusion, I would urge the Opposition Cabinet, who have clearly been whipped, to refuse to write off this £1.2 million to NCP. It is incumbent upon us to uphold the principles of fiscal responsibility, transparency and accountability, especially as we contemplate raising taxes for the public. Let us prioritise the needs of our community and allocate resources in a manner that best serves the collective welfare of the Bolton's residents. If you go through with this, the residents will punish you at the polls, and rightly so. Thank you.